The distress beacon pulsed silently in the void, its quantum signature barely a whisper against the cosmic background radiation. Sarah Chen might have missed it entirely if her cargo ship's ancient scanner hadn't been glitching, cycling through forbidden frequencies as she tried to kick it back into working order. The signal wasn't meant for human eyes. It was far too sophisticated, encoded in patterns that made her neural implants tingle. Sarah killed her engines, letting her ship, the Wanderlust, drift in the shadow of an ice-streaked asteroid. The beacon's origin point lay just ahead, a derelict vessel of clearly alien design, its silvery hull marred by weapon scores. The ship's architecture was unlike anything in her database, all sweeping curves and crystalline spires that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Computer, full spectrum analysis, Sarah commanded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. The holographic display bloomed to life, painting her cramped cockpit in shades of blue. And keep our emissions low. I don't want to advertise our presence. Her caution wasn't unfounded. This sector had been seeing increased patrol activity from the Nexus Collective, the galaxy's self-appointed peacekeepers. They claimed to be hunting pirates, but Sarah had been running cargo routes long enough to know when something bigger was brewing. The computer's analysis confirmed her suspicions. The alien vessel's design matched no known species in the public database, but its energy signature bore similarities to myths that had been circulating through the spacer community. Stories of the Aetheri, an ancient civilization that had seemingly vanished overnight 6 months ago, leaving behind only rumors and fragments of their incredible biotechnology. Sarah's fingers drummed against her console. The smart play would be to alert the authorities and collect the finder's fee. But something about this felt wrong. The weapon damage on the ship's hull told a story of pursuit and desperation, not accident or abandonment. Proximity scan for life signs, she ordered, already knowing she was going to regret this decision. The computer chirped once, then again, more insistently. One life sign, faint but stable. Sarah suited up, her worn environmental suit wheezing slightly as it pressurized. The magnetic grapples in her boots clicked against the Wanderlust's deck as she made her way to the airlock. Computer, maintain position and alert me to any approaching vessels. Authorization, Chen 7 Delta. The space between ships was silent and cold, stars wheeling slowly overhead as Sarah maneuvered with her suit's thrusters. Up close, the alien vessel was even more remarkable. What she had taken for mere decorative patterns were actually complex circuits integrated into the hull itself, dark now, but presumably once alive with energy. She found an entry point, an airlock or something similar, and pressed her multi-tool against its surface. The device interfaced with the ship's systems, probing for access. To her surprise, the door spiraled open almost immediately, as if welcoming her. The ship's interior was dark and cold, emergency lighting casting everything in a pale violet glow. Sarah's boots clicked against floors made of some crystalline material that seemed to resonate with each step. The architecture was organic, almost liquid in its flow, making it difficult to distinguish walls from support structures. She followed her suit's bioscanner deeper into the vessel. The life sign was stronger now, coming from what appeared to be the ship's central chamber. As she approached, she noticed the temperature rising slightly, and her sensors detected traces of an atmosphere being maintained. The chamber doors parted at her approach, revealing a sight that stopped her in her tracks. Suspended in a field of shimmering energy was a being that could only be ethery, humanoid but clearly alien, with silvery skin that seemed to ripple like mercury and features that were both elegant and otherworldly. The being was adorned in what remained of elaborate robes, now torn and stained. Most striking were the eyes that opened to meet Sarah's gaze, deep violet orbs that held both ancient wisdom and immediate, sharp intelligence. The ethery's mouth didn't move, but Sarah heard a voice in her mind, clear as crystal. "You are human." The mental voice carried notes of surprise, curiosity, and something else. Hope. "I did not expect one of your kind to find me. Perhaps that is for the best." Sarah remained still, her mind racing. First contact protocols existed, but this clearly wasn't a first contact situation. The Aetheri had been known to the galaxy, even if they had been reclusive. "I'm Sarah Chen, independent cargo hauler. Your beacon caught my attention. Are you in need of assistance?" A sound like distant chimes echoed in her mind. Laughter, she realized. "Assistance? Yes, though I doubt you understand the full scope of what you offer." The energy field surrounding the Aetheri flickered and died, and the being stepped forward with fluid grace despite obvious injury. "I am Lysandra, last queen of the Aetheri, and I am being hunted." Sarah's breath caught. The queen of a supposedly extinct civilization, found floating in the void. This was far beyond her usual cargo runs. Hunted by whom? By those who would rewrite history, Lysandra replied, one hand pressing against her side where her robes were darkest. "The Nexus Collective spreads lies, claiming we Aetheri destroyed ourselves in civil war. The truth is far darker. They came without warning, with weapons that turned our own biotechnology against us. When I refused to surrender our most sacred knowledge, they'd branded me a war criminal and genocidal tyrant." The Queen's mental voice carried centuries of dignity, even in defeat. "They hunt me now to complete their fiction. With my death, there will be none left to speak the truth of what happened to my people." Sarah's mind raced. If the Queen was telling the truth, this was bigger than anything she'd ever encountered. If she was lying, well, Sarah would be harboring the galaxy's most wanted fugitive. Her next words would set her on a path she couldn't easily leave. She thought of her years hauling cargo through the stars, watching as the Nexus Collective's influence grew, their regulations and restrictions slowly squeezing independent operators like herself. She thought of the rumors she'd heard in port bars, whispered stories of entire species being regulated into submission. "My ship's small," Sarah said finally, "and not exactly up to royal standards. But it's fast, armed, and off most official scanners." She extended her hand, a very human gesture of agreement. "If you're willing to trust a smuggler, I'll help you stay alive long enough to expose the truth." Lysandra regarded the offered hand with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read. Then, with deliberate care, the Queen reached out and clasped it. The touch sent a slight tingle through Sarah's suit, like static electricity. "Trust," Lysandra mused, "is something I thought lost with my world. Perhaps there is wisdom in finding it in unexpected places." Her violet eyes met Sarah's through the suit's faceplate. "I accept your offer, Sarah Chen, but know that in doing so, you make yourself a target of forces you may not fully comprehend." "Wouldn't be the first time," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "Can you walk? We should move quickly. That beacon of yours might attract less friendly visitors." As if in response to her words, Sarah's neural implant buzzed with an alert from her ship's computer. Multiple vessels had just appeared at the edge of scanner range, their energy signatures matching Nexus Collective patrol ships. The hunt had already begun. Sarah's boots hammered against the crystalline floor as she half-guided, half-supported Lysandra through the alien vessel's corridors. The Queen moved with surprising speed despite her injuries, her liquid silver skin catching the emergency lights in rippling patterns. "My ship's docked on the port side," Sarah said, checking her neural feed. The Nexus vessels were closing fast, their formation suggesting they knew exactly what they were hunting. "We've got maybe 3 minutes before they're in weapons range." The Nexus hunts with precision. Lysandra's mental voice was strained but steady. "They will have brought specialized weaponry designed to penetrate Aetheri shielding. Your vessel, the Wanderlust, has a few tricks they won't expect," Sarah interrupted, helping the Queen through the airlock. "Human ships might be primitive by your standards, but we're good at improvising." They crossed the void between ships, magnetic tethers keeping them anchored against the stellar winds. Sarah's mind raced through escape scenarios, mapping vectors, and calculating fuel reserves. The Wanderlust wasn't built for extended combat, but it could outmaneuver larger ships in the right conditions. Once inside, Sarah sealed the airlock and rushed them to the cockpit. Her ship's interior was a stark contrast to the Aetheri vessel, all utilitarian metal and exposed circuitry, with barely enough room for 2 people among the jerry-rigged systems and cargo containers. "Secure yourself," Sarah ordered, dropping into the pilot's seat. "Computer, full power to engines and defensive systems. Dump all non-essential power to the shield generators." Lysandra gracefully settled into the co-pilot's chair, her movements careful but precise. "Your technology is fascinating, crude, yet elegant in its resourcefulness." Her violet eyes studied the hodgepodge of displays and controls. "But the Nexus fleet will be expecting an Aetheri ship or a military vessel," Sarah finished, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Not a beat-up cargo hauler." The engines roared to life, and Sarah felt the familiar surge of acceleration as they pulled away from the derelict ship. The tactical display showed 5 Nexus vessels approaching in an attack pattern, their sleek forms cutting through space like predatory fish. Energy readings suggested they were powering up weapons designed to bypass advanced Aetheri defenses, which meant they might have trouble tracking a ship using much simpler technology. Sarah smiled grimly. "Hold tight, Your Majesty. This might get rough." She killed the main engines and fired the maneuvering thrusters, sending the Wanderlust into a controlled tumble. The Nexus ships adjusted their approach, probably assuming her ship had been damaged. "Perfect. Their targeting systems are designed to predict advanced evasion algorithms," Lysandra observed, her mental voice tinged with both concern and growing interest. "But your movements are completely unpredictable," Sarah confirmed, triggering a burst from the port thrusters. The ship spun wildly, but she had long since learned to ignore her inner ear's protests. "Because I'm making this up as I go." The first volley of Nexus fire passed harmlessly through the space where they would have been if they'd followed standard evasive patterns. Sarah waited until the last possible moment, then fired the main engines at full burn. The Wanderlust shot forward, threading the needle between 2 Nexus cruisers. Alarms blared as enemy targeting systems locked on, but Sarah was already implementing the next phase of her improvised plan. She directed their course toward a nearby debris field, remnants of some ancient battle or stellar collision. "They're pursuing," Lysandra reported, adapting quickly to the human ship systems. "Their weapons are cycling to conventional targeting protocols." "Good," Sarah said, though her expression remained focused. "Means they'll have to get closer to ensure a hit. Computer, initiate sequence Chen Echo 9. The Wanderlust's engines suddenly cut out, and several panels along the hull began venting plasma in a controlled pattern. To any observer, it would appear the ship had suffered critical damage. "You're making your ship appear vulnerable," Lysandra realized. "But surely they want." "The Nexus thinks in patterns," Sarah explained, her hands hovering over the controls. "Right now, they see a damaged ship limping toward cover. Standard protocol would be to close in and disable us completely before we can hide in the debris field." The tactical display confirmed her prediction. The Nexus ships were tightening formation, moving to box them in. Their weapons powered down slightly. They wanted to capture, not destroy. Sarah waited until they were almost in optimal firing range. Then, with a feral grin, she slammed full power to the engines and activated the Wanderlust's sole military-grade system, a surplus electromagnetic pulse generator she'd acquired from a less-than-legitimate source. The EMP burst caught the Nexus ships at point-blank range. Their sophisticated systems, calibrated for defending against advanced energy weapons, proved surprisingly vulnerable to such a crude attack. Ship after ship went dark, their formations breaking as emergency systems fought to restore power. "Now comes the fun part," Sarah announced, pushing the engines beyond safety limits. The Wanderlust shot forward into the debris field, weaving between massive chunks of twisted metal and crystal. The ship's smaller size and Sarah's intricate knowledge of its capabilities allowed them to take paths the larger Nexus vessels couldn't follow. It was 10 tense minutes before Sarah finally allowed herself to relax slightly. They had lost their pursuers in the chaos of the debris field, and her sensors showed no signs of immediate pursuit. That, Lysandra said into the silence, was not what I expected when I first sensed a human ship approaching. There was a new note in her mental voice, respect, tinged with something like wonder. Your species continues to surprise me. Sarah ran a quick systems check before responding. Humanity's got a lot of experience being the underdog. We've learned to work with what we have. She turned to face the Queen directly. Speaking of which, we should talk about what happens next. Those ships will report back to their superiors. The Nexus will know you're alive, and that you have help. Yes, Lysandra's expression grew solemn. I have involved you in a conflict far larger than a simple pursuit. The Nexus Collective's attack on my people was merely the beginning. They seek something we protected for millennia. Knowledge that could reshape the very fabric of reality itself. And now I'm the only one who knows the truth, Sarah mused, already plotting courses to safe harbors she knew. Well, Your Majesty, if we're going to expose a galaxy-wide conspiracy, we'll need allies. And I know just where to start looking. The Wanderlust slipped deeper into space, carrying its unlikely pair of passengers toward a destiny neither could have imagined. Behind them, the debris field slowly settled back into its eternal silence, giving no hint of the drama that had just unfolded among its ancient remains. The neon-streaked underbelly of Europa Station wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to find an alien queen, but that was precisely why Sarah had chosen it. The station's lower levels were a maze of unauthorized modifications and jury-rigged systems, where the station's official AI struggled to maintain surveillance. Perfect for two of the galaxy's most wanted fugitives. Sarah led Lysandra through crowded corridors, the Queen now disguised in a hooded environmental suit. They'd learned the hard way that her silver skin was too distinctive. 3 close calls with Nexus agents in the past week had taught them caution. My contact's just ahead, Sarah murmured, her neural implants scanning for surveillance devices. Raj is, well, let's say he specializes in information that governments wish would stay buried. I sense anxiety in your thoughts, Lysandra responded silently. After days of mental communication, Sarah had grown accustomed to the Queen's presence in her mind. You trust this individual, yet you fear for him. The Nexus has been cracking down on independent data brokers. Last month, they regulated an entire information network out of existence. But Raj. Sarah paused at a nondescript door marked only with a faded maintenance code. Raj is different. He doesn't just collect data, he sees patterns. The door slid open at Sarah's knock, revealing a cramped office packed with servers and holographic displays. A small man with cybernetic eye enhancements looked up from his work, his face breaking into a genuine smile. Sarah Chen. I thought you'd retired to some peaceful cargo route by now. Got myself involved in something bigger, Sarah replied, closing the door behind them. Raj, I need you to meet someone. Lysandra lowered her hood, her violet eyes reflecting the blue glow of the servers. Raj's cybernetic eyes wavered as they adjusted, and his smile faded into an expression of awe. By all the stars, the rumors were true. The Queen lives. The Queen needs proof, Sarah cut in. Evidence of what really happened to the Ethery. The Nexus couldn't have wiped out an entire civilization without leaving traces. Rad's expression turned serious. He gestured to his main console, bringing up a complex web of data streams. They were thorough, but not perfect. I've been tracking anomalies ever since the Ethery supposedly destroyed themselves. Supply shipments that don't match official manifests. Energy signatures where there shouldn't be any. And this. He pulled up a series of encrypted communications. Nexus internal messages, heavily redacted. But look at the transmission patterns. The data formed a clear timeline, showing increased Nexus activity around Ethery space weeks before the alleged civil war. They were preparing, Lysandra said, her mental voice tight with controlled anger, positioning their forces while maintaining the facade of peace. But why? Sarah studied the data. What could be worth destroying an entire civilization? Lysandra moved to the displays, her silver fingers trailing through the holographic data. The Nexus sought what they called the World Seed, an aethery achievement that took millennia to perfect. Biotechnology beyond anything the galaxy has seen. The power to reshape matter at its most fundamental level. Dangerous in the wrong hands, Raj noted, his cybernetic eyes scanning rapidly. But that's not all they were after, was it? No. Lysandra's form seemed to shimmer with suppressed emotion. The World Seed was merely a key. Beneath our capital city lay something far older than my people, an artifact of the first ones themselves. We protected it, studied it, but never dared to fully activate it. The Nexus, they lack such restraint. Sarah felt a chill. The first ones were more myth than history, said to have vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. What kind of artifact? Before Lysandra could answer, Raj's security systems flashed red. Multiple arm signatures converging, he reported, fingers flying over his controls. They're using station security codes, but the pattern. Nexus, Sarah finished. She drew her hidden blaster. They must have tracked us through the station's power grid. Your Majesty, we need tow. The far wall exploded inward. Sarah dove for cover, pulling Lysandra with her as armored figures poured through the breach. Nexus tactical troops, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Raj, Sarah shouted over the chaos. The data. Already done. He slapped a quantum storage device into her hand as he ducked behind a server bank. Emergency exit, behind the main processor. I'll hold them. A blast of energy caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. But even as he fell, his cybernetic eyes flashed, and every system in the office began to overload. Servers exploded in cascading waves, filling the air with smoke and debris. Sarah half-dragged Lysandra toward the hidden exit, firing blindly behind them. Her blaster shots seemed pathetically inadequate against the Nexus troops' advanced armor, but the chaos of the exploding systems gave them the cover they needed. They emerged into a maintenance tunnel, the sounds of battle muffled behind them. Sarah's lungs burned as they ran, her mind already plotting escape routes. The quantum storage, she gasped. What's on it? Everything. Lysandra's mental voice was grim. Not just evidence of their betrayal, but coordinates. The location of our most secret installation, a facility even I never visited while I ruled. If the artifact truly rests beneath our capital, then within that facility lies the means to reach it. They reached a junction, and Sarah made a split-second decision, leading them toward the station's commercial docking rings. You're saying we might actually have a chance to stop whatever the Nexus is planning. More than that, Lysandra's mental tone carried both hope and determination. With the facility's resources, we might find a way to restore what was lost. But Sarah, the Queen's hand caught her arm, stopping her. The path ahead grows ever more dangerous. You have already risked much for me. I cannot ask. You're not asking. Sarah interrupted. I made my choice when I answered the distress beacon. Besides, she managed a tight smile. Someone has to keep you alive long enough to expose the truth. Distant alarms began to sound, and they started running again. Behind them, the Nexus forces would be regrouping, analyzing their escape route, preparing for a station-wide manhunt. But they had something now that they didn't have before, proof and a destination. As they raced through the station's shadowy underbelly, Sarah felt an unfamiliar emotion building in her chest. It wasn't just determination or the thrill of defying impossible odds. It was something deeper, a sense that she was part of something truly momentous, a chance to right a cosmic wrong. The queen of a fallen civilization and a human cargo pilot, running from the galaxy's most powerful organization, armed with nothing but the truth and each other's trust. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so terrifyingly real. Ahead lay their next challenge, getting off the station alive. But beyond that waited something even greater, a chance to uncover secrets that could reshape the galaxy itself. Sarah only hoped they'd live long enough to see it through. The Wanderlust burst from Europa Station's docking ring in a shower of sparks and emergency coolant. Sarah's fingers danced across the controls, overriding safety protocols and pushing the engines well beyond their rated capacity. Behind them, station defense turrets were already tracking their trajectory, their targeting systems confused by the cascade of false transponder signals Sarah had activated during their escape. Multiple pursuit craft launching, Lysandra reported, her silver hands moving with practiced ease across the ship's jury-rigged sensor array. Nexus configurations, but different. These vessels bear energy signatures I've not encountered before. Sarah spared a glance at the tactical display and felt her stomach drop. The ships emerging from the station's military dock were sleek, predatory things, their hulls gleaming with an almost organic sheen. They've adapted ethery technology, she realized. They're using your people's own innovations against us. Not all of them. Lysandra's mental voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. The Nexus may have stolen our ships, our weapons, even our world, but they cannot comprehend our deepest secrets. Her violet eyes fixed on the quantum storage device now interfaced with the Wanderlust's navigation system. The coordinates Raj gave us, they lead to more than just a facility. The ship shuddered as the first volley of enemy fire streaked past their stern. Sarah initiated a series of random course corrections, her modifications to the engines allowing maneuvers that would have torn a standard vessel apart. Want to fill me in on what we're really looking for? Because right now we're heading into the most heavily patrolled sector of aethery space, with half the Nexus fleet on our tail. The facility houses the key of ascension, Lysandra explained, bracing herself as Sarah executed a particularly violent evasive pattern, a device created by my ancestors to interface with the First One's artifact. The Nexus believes they can force the artifact to yield its power through brute force and stolen technology. They do not understand that it requires something far more subtle, a synthesis of consciousness and machine that only the aethery ever mastered. More enemy fire rocked the ship. The pursuing vessels were learning, adapting their tactics to counter Sarah's unconventional flying. We're not going to outrun them forever, Sarah warned. Even with the modifications, the Wanderlust can't. She broke off as Lysandra suddenly stood, moving to place her hands directly on the ship's main control panel. Silver began to spread from her fingers, flowing like liquid metal across the console's surface. Your vessel's systems are primitive but pure, the Queen said, her mental voice taking on a resonant quality that made Sarah's neural implants tingle. They can be enhanced. The ship's displays flickered, then stabilized into entirely new configurations. Sarah felt the control yoke become more responsive under her hands, as if the Wanderlust was awakening to new possibilities. What did you? A temporary merger of ethery biotechnology with your ship's systems, Lysandra explained, though her voice was strained with effort. It will not last long, but it should give us the advantage we need. The Nexus believes they understand our technology because they stole its surface features. They know nothing of its depths. Sarah grinned fiercely as she felt the ship's new capabilities unfold in her mind. The Wanderlust wasn't just responding to her commands now. It was anticipating them, moving with an organic fluidity that no standard vessel could match. She threw them into a series of impossible maneuvers, leaving their pursuers struggling to compensate. The facility's coordinates are locked in, Lysandra reported, but the path takes us through the Crimson Nebula. The radiation will hide us from their sensors, Sarah finished, and maybe cook us alive, but right now that's a risk we'll have to take. She punched in the course corrections, feeling the enhanced engines surge with power that bordered on the mystical. How long will your modifications hold? Long enough, I hope. The Queen's silver skin was dulled with effort, the strain of maintaining the technological merger clearly taking its toll. The nebula's edge approaches. Sarah, what you've done, helping me, fighting alongside me. No human has ever been trusted with ethery secrets before. Yeah. Well, Sarah managed a tight smile as she aimed them toward the roiling crimson clouds ahead. Humans are good at surprising people. Speaking of surprises, she reached out and activated a series of commands she prepared for just such a desperate moment. Behind them, dozens of hidden devices they'd scattered during their escape from the station suddenly activated, creating a web of electromagnetic disruption that sent their pursuers into chaos. The Wanderlust plunged into the nebula's embrace, its enhanced systems fighting against the savage radiation storms. Sarah felt the ship's pain through her neural link. And something else. A resonance, a harmony between human technology, HFY bioengineering, and the sheer determination of its crew. "We're being hailed," Lysandra announced suddenly. "Not from behind us, from ahead, within the nebula itself." Sarah frowned. "That's impossible. Nothing could survive in these conditions, unless—" She looked at the Queen, seeing her own realization mirrored in those alien eyes. "We are not the first to seek refuge here," Lysandra confirmed. "There were elements within the HFY government who foresaw the Nexus's betrayal. They established contingencies." The nebula's crimson gases parted before them, revealing a sight that made Sarah's breath catch. A massive structure hung in the void, its crystalline architecture unmistakably ethereal, but designed to blend seamlessly with the nebula's natural formations. A hidden fortress, preserved against the day it would be needed. As they approached, more ships emerged from hiding, vessels Sarah recognized from historical records of the HFY's golden age. A surviving fleet, maintained in secret by those who had escaped the Nexus's purge. "The Resistance lives," Lysandra whispered, joy and fierce pride mingling in her mental voice. "And now, with the evidence we carry and the key of ascension within our reach, we can take the fight back to them." Sarah finished. She guided the Wanderlust toward the hidden base's docking bay, already calculating the possibilities this discovery presented. "But the Nexus won't give up easily. They'll tear the galaxy apart looking for us. Let them try." Lysandra's hand found Sarah's shoulder, the touch sending a current of shared purpose between them. "They sought to destroy us because they feared what we might become. Now they shall learn what we can achieve when HFY wisdom and human courage stand together." The Wanderlust settled into its berth within the hidden fortress, its hybrid systems humming with potential. Around them, the survivors of a murdered civilization prepared for war. And deep within the quantum storage device, the coordinates to humanity's greatest adventure waited to be decoded. The true battle for the galaxy's soul was about to begin. The ancient HFY capital of Luminera lay before them, its crystalline spires now dark and lifeless under an alien sun. From the bridge of the Resistance flagship, Sarah watched as their combined fleet, a marriage of surviving HFY vessels and hastily retrofitted human ships, moved into position. Each craft bore the marks of their desperate preparation. Hybrid systems melding human pragmatism with HFY biotechnology, created in the frantic weeks since their discovery of the Resistance base. "The Nexus fleet approaches," Lysandra announced, her silver form seeming to pulse with barely contained energy. The Queen had spent days interfacing with the key of ascension, preparing for what was to come. "Their numbers are considerable." Sarah checked the tactical displays, now enhanced with HFY sensor technology. The enemy fleet was massive, nearly every ship the Nexus Collective could muster, arranged in battle formations that stretched beyond the system's orbit. They had anticipated this moment, known their prey would eventually return to these ruins. "They still don't understand," Sarah mused, watching the enemy's methodical approach. "They think this is about revenge, about reclaiming territory. They have no idea what we're really here to do, which gives us our only advantage." Lysandra's mental voice carried both determination and a deep sadness as she gazed upon her fallen capital. "The artifact chamber lies beneath the central spire. Once we secure a landing zone, you must get me there. Everything depends on reaching it before they realize our true purpose." Sarah nodded, her hand unconsciously touching the modified neural implant at the base of her skull. The device was a fusion of human and ethereal technology, designed to allow her to interface with the ancient systems they would find below. It was an untested theory that a human consciousness, unburdened by generations of ethereal evolutionary adaptation, might be able to approach the First One's artifact in ways the Nexus never considered. "Fleet commanders report ready," announced Captain Vega, one of the first human captains to join their cause. Like many others, she had seen through the Nexus's facade of benevolent regulation to the tyranny beneath. "The diversion teams are in position. Then we begin." Lysandra raised her hand, and Sarah felt the ship's hybrid systems respond, connecting every vessel in their fleet into a synchronized whole. "Remember, we need only hold them long enough to reach the artifact. What comes after?" She met Sarah's eyes. "That will depend on forces beyond our control." The battle erupted with devastating force. The Resistance fleet struck first, their hybrid weapons cutting through space with impossible geometries that the Nexus's stolen ethereal technology couldn't predict. Sarah watched as the carefully coordinated attack created exactly the kind of chaos they needed, a gap in the enemy lines, leading straight to the planet's surface. "That's our window," Sarah announced, already moving toward the hangar bay where the Wanderlust waited. The ship had been transformed by weeks of modification, its systems now a perfect synthesis of both civilizations' innovations. Time to remind the Nexus why they should have left humanity out of their calculations. The descent to Luminara's surface was a blur of violent maneuvers and near misses. Sarah pushed the Wanderlust to its absolute limits, using every trick she learned as a smuggler combined with their new hybrid systems. Lysandra maintained their connection to the Resistance fleet, coordinating the battle above to keep the Nexus forces divided and confused. They landed hard in the ruins of what had once been a magnificent plaza, the ground still scared from the original Nexus attack months ago. Sarah could feel the weight of history pressing down on them as they made their way through the empty streets, every step taking them closer to the central spire. "They're realizing," Lysandra warned as they approached the spire's base. "The Nexus commanders. Their tactics are changing. They know this was too easy." As if in response, the ground shook with nearby explosions. The elite Nexus strike teams were landing throughout the ruins, converging on their position. The Resistance fleet above could only hold them back for so long. The entrance to the underground chamber had been hidden beneath layers of security that responded instantly to Lysandra's presence. As they descended into the ancient depths, Sarah activated her modified neural implant, feeling it attuned to the surrounding systems. The architecture here was different, older, stranger, bearing only the faintest resemblance to ethereal design. They reached the artifact chamber just as the first Nexus forces breached the upper levels. The chamber itself was vast, its walls covered in patterns that hurt Sarah's eyes to look at directly. And at its center, suspended in fields of energy that seemed to bend reality itself, was the artifact. The interface of the First Ones, Lysandra breathed, her mental voice filled with awe. "My ancestors spent millennia studying it, never daring to fully activate its potential. The Nexus thought brute force and stolen technology would be enough to master it. But the artifact requires something else, a consciousness unbound by preconception, capable of seeing new patterns in the universal dance." Sarah approached the artifact, feeling her neural implant resonate with its impossible energies. "And you think a human mind might succeed where others failed, because we're too stubborn to know what's impossible. Because you see with new eyes," Lysandra corrected, moving to take her position at the chamber's ancient controls. "The key of ascension will create the link, but you must be the one to make contact. To show the artifact that life in this galaxy has evolved beyond the wars and divisions that led the First Ones to hide their legacy." The chamber's entrance exploded inward. Nexus troops poured through, their weapons charged with enough power to vaporize a small city. At their head stood Admiral Voss, the architect of the ethereal genocide, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with stolen power. "How appropriate," he sneered, his amplified voice echoing through the chamber. the last Aetheri queen and her pet human, thinking they could undo what we've achieved. The artifact's power belongs to the Nexus now. The galaxy requires order, structure, not the chaos of unfettered evolution. Sarah met his gaze steadily as she placed her hands on the artifact's surface. You still don't get it, do you? Evolution is chaos. Life is chaos. That's what makes it beautiful. Lysandra activated the key of ascension, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, guided by the hybrid neural implant, reaching out to touch something vast and ancient and impossibly aware. The artifact responded to her touch, not with the raw power the Nexus sought, but with understanding. Images flooded her mind. The first one's own journey from chaos to harmony, their realization that true peace could never come through forced order. The artifact wasn't a weapon to be wielded, but a key to unlocking life's next great step forward. Light erupted from the artifact, spreading through the chamber in waves of impossible color. Sarah felt Lysandra's consciousness join with hers through their shared connection, adding aethery wisdom to human insight. Together, they showed the artifact a vision of what could be, a galaxy where different species grew together not through domination, but through the chaotic, beautiful dance of cooperative evolution. The light reached the Nexus forces, and their stolen technology simply stopped. Not destroyed, but transformed, returned to its original aethery nature. Throughout the ruins above, throughout the battle-torn space around the planet, the same transformation swept outward like a ripple in reality's fabric. Admiral Voss staggered, his cybernetic enhancements dark and lifeless. What have you done? Show the artifact what it was waiting for, Sarah answered, her voice distant with the echoes of cosmic understanding still running through her mind. Proof that different species could work together, could merge their strengths without losing their unique perspectives. The first ones didn't hide their legacy to keep it safe from us. They waited until we were ready to understand it. The light faded, but its effects remained. The Nexus fleet hung powerless in orbit, their stolen technology transformed. The resistance ships, built on genuine cooperation between humans and aethery, remained operational. And throughout the chamber, throughout the ruins of Luminara, points of light began to sparkle as ancient systems reactivated. The city awakens, Lysandra whispered, joy and wonder filling her mental voice. Not just here, everywhere. Every aethery world, every facility and outpost. The artifact doesn't just restore, it evolves, improves, makes new connections. Sarah watched in amazement as the ruins around them began to transform, crystal spires regenerating with new patterns that incorporated aspects of human design alongside aethery architecture. We didn't just save your civilization, she realized. We helped it take the next step forward, and we get to take that step together. In orbit above them, human and aethery ships began the work of securing the defeated Nexus forces. But here in the artifact chamber, Sarah and Lysandra stood witness to something far greater, the dawn of a new age, where the barriers between species fell away not through conquest, but through understanding. The human who dared to help an alien queen had become part of a story greater than either of them had imagined. And as the transformed city of Luminara rose around them, its new architecture a testament to the power of cooperation, they knew that their journey was not ending, but only beginning. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.